Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Superior AMA. My name is Cade, and I'm joined here with Brian, Ray, and Sal to discuss Superior. And if you guys could introduce yourselves, that'd be great.
Hey, I'm Brian. I am I am the design director for Superior at Drifter Entertainment.
I'm Ray. I'm head of engineering and one of the co-founders with Brian for Drifter.
I'm Sal. I'm the product team here at Gala. I'm really happy to be talking about Superior again here today. Wanted to start off by talking a little bit about the sale that's going live at 3 p.m. Later, right after this AMA is done. So we're going to sell two characters. One of them is a brand new character that some of you had the good fortune of trying to name over the weekend. Murmur, our trickster character, and we're also selling Nomad. We're selling them in uncommon, rare, epic, legendary, and ancient rarities for 250, 700, 1700, 6800, and 14,000 respectively. Supplies a little lower than we had for the previous Ronin. That's all that information is in the article. And I just want to talk a little bit about why the different pricing structure for this. And one of the reasons is really we're just looking at the market right now and where it's at for NFTs, and we wanted to respond to that market and make sure we're still delivering value to our customers and buyers. So felt that these prices were appropriate given where we are right now. We're super excited because I only recently got to play a lot of Murmur, and it's a really fun character, very different. We're really excited to bring her to a demo pretty soon, so everyone can play with her.
Thanks, Sal. All right, so speaking of Murmur and Nomad, I'd like to ask a few questions to either Ray or Brian. What kind of makes Murmur and these characters unique additions to the universe of Superior?
Yeah, well, so the character that probably a lot of people are most familiar with is Ronin, who is our first character that we put on sale. He's part of the bruiser archetype. That means he's kind of a tough guy who can take a lot of punishment, likes to get up close and hack people away with his full auto and melee skills. These two new characters kind of bring different archetypes to the gameplay. So Nomad is a sharpshooter who engages with enemies from afar. Her overdrive ability allows her to automatically hit people, and she can also hack the satellite network to call down lasers of death on the heads of enemies. And then the new character that we're kind of rolling out today is Murmur. She's our trickster archetype, and the tricksters have the ability to go into stealth, hit people from the side really hard, and they also have Murmur has the ability to kind of use holograms to confuse and rattle her enemies by running around and using holograms.
Yeah, it's like Duke 3D, right? The hologram weapon, one of the best weapons in the game. You can dash backwards, I think, is the current one of the activations, right? And leave a hologram that the wonderfully smart AI will just hone in onto and give you a chance to either reload or take a different attack.
Yeah, in the late build on Murmur, you can actually teach your hologram how to shoot a gun, and it will actually become an offensive element as well as a distractionary element. And there's one of the things that's kind of changed since the last playtest is that we've really added branching trees to our skill tree, and those branching trees allow you to kind of say all right, I want to go after a deadly hologram that shoots at its opponents, or I want to double down on that evasion and more confusion and stealth aspect of the trickster, for instance. And those different builds are now kind of surfaced in different strategies that you can take as you build your character.
Yeah, I'd say it's been 3 months since people have had a chance to play Superior, right? And so there's been a tremendous amount of new content going into the game that hopefully you guys will be able to get your hands on fairly soon. And then on top of that, yeah, reworks of the design trees, a lot of the core perks, and really I think the design team has done an awesome job of giving each one of these characters some really significant personality in the way they play, and how you can go about combining the various powers on top of that to have a huge variety of builds. And then on top of that, we've added a few new adversaries too, which will be fun surprises. I look forward to seeing the response to those on Discord in a couple, or whenever we get the next demo out.
That's awesome. Yeah. So what kind of inspired you to create these certain types of characters? Was there any kind of sources that you drew from, or anything that you were a big fan of that you wanted to put into this character?
I mean, I think everybody on the team has their favorite games that they've played throughout the years, and so there's a lot of inspiration points. Brian, do you remember who was the original? Was it Gwen that brought the idea of the trickster to Superior?
Yeah. One of our designers named Gwen put together the original concept of the trickster, and yeah, this character is I think inspired by sort of the rogue in Dungeons and Dragons to some extent. She's a glass cannon. And we really like the idea that where somebody like a bruiser class like the Ronin has more staying power when he gets down into the fight, because he can just take more punishment. The trickster has to kind of back out and spring in and spring out and have more of a hit and run type of rhythm to the gameplay, which is sort of a classic roguish engagement. And then with the Nomad, we started with we knew we wanted to build sort of a sharpshooter archetype character. So we started with your classic snipers that, almost every game had, but we felt like that wasn't sort of enough to make it distinctly unique. After all, the Nomad is hunting superheroes, not just like enemy soldiers. And that's where the giant sky laser came in. And, I think that was sort of inspired actually by, if you go all the way back to like Gears of War,
Hammer of Dawn.
Yeah, the Pillar of Dawn. I think it sort of started there. It was like one of our all-time favorite weapons. We're like, what if we built, the Pillar of Dawn inherently into the character class, and that was like a feature of the skill tree. We just hadn't seen that before. It felt unique and fresh for a sharpshooter, and so that really became kind of one of the core inciting concepts that shaped who eventually became the Nomad.
One of the other fun things about working on Superior, as we go through various prototype and iterations, we come up with a lot of ideas for powers that are really fun, but don't necessarily fit into whatever we're focusing on at the time, right? And a long time ago, we had this ability we called Speedster, which is just kind of our version of the Flash, where you run around like a maniac and wreak havoc. And so it was kind of cool. I'm going to be embarrassed if it's no longer part of her skill tree. But at one point, at least, the Murmur was bringing back one of those skills. So it was kind of fun for me just to see, oh, yes, one of my favorite abilities found new life, made it back into the game. Actually,
not currently in the Murmur tree, but it is part of that journey. It's the ongoing development journey.
That's what I figured. You guys probably cut it, but it was cool for 2 weeks.
Not because we don't love it, but because we want to make sure that it has like the best spot.
So but I think journey is a little bit longer. Yeah.
Yeah, I think each one of these characters, we do try to like draw inspiration from our favorite superheroes and other game characters, and that's kind of part of the fun of Superior in general. Is that kind of mix and mash of genres and other gameplay into a sort of roguelike structure or shooter structure that we're doing that is our kind of like uniquely ours right now.
Yeah, and I know rambling a little bit, but one thing that I'm really excited about is we put a lot of effort on the melee side of the game as well. So we're finding that is just as viable as like going full guns or doing a hybrid or just full melee, which is really fun. This was a lot of times you start like, especially with the Ronin, he's got the katana, you're like, I just have this character fantasy of I want to go in there and smack people, face to face and build around that. And that's much more viable in the game nowadays.
Yeah, the abilities you guys have for melee as well are kind of pretty interesting. Pretty cool styles there. All right, so yeah, thanks for talking about the characters. I think one thing a lot of people want to know about is the economy and how that's going to work within the game. I think Sal, you want to talk about?
Actually, there was a question about in Discord about whether we could ever play with enemy characters in the future.
Oh, you mean like what we did in Gears of War? It was like Queen Horde or something like that. Where you were the bad guys? I don't know. Maybe someday. It's not in the game right now.
No plans right now. But right now we're having too much hunting superheroes to let the player actually be one. Like creating your own superhero as part of the roguelike journey is sort of core to the story right now. I do like the idea. I mean, in the future, the plan or the design of the game is to continue to add new characters to the story. I think in the future, potentially, we've talked sometimes about the idea of like maybe one of the future characters we introduce is actually a superhuman who's somehow not as corrupted and mutated as all the others and has joined the superhero hunting squad. But we don't have any like concrete plans around that. It's just a fun idea.
I don't know. I'd pay good money to play as Backbone. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right. Yeah. So do you want to go to the economy?
Yeah. So we haven't. It's been a while since we've talked to everyone, and I know when we had our first sale, we were just starting to flesh out the economy. Since then, Brian and I have been working quite a bit with both folks at Gala and Drifter to figure out kind of the right approach to Superior, given everything that we're learning from design of other games and everything else. But you know, so it's been a long process. We feel really good where we are right now, and the economy at its core has kind of two key elements. Like, we're looking to build out competitive leaderboards that are essentially zero sum in nature, and so that you can take your primes and compete in these leaderboards for the best score and try to challenge yourself. And these would rotate on a regular basis, maybe daily, maybe not. We're still figuring it out, figuring that out. And players would need challenge keys to enter the leaderboards and play and earn that way. And the second piece of the economy that we're looking at, and this is kind of the first time we're going to talk about this, we're looking at adding nodes to the game. We're talking about adding nodes. And what's exciting for me about the nodes in Superior is that, you know, again, we don't have a roadmap yet for this, so I don't want Ray to hurt me here. But we're looking at like really kind of trying to go back to kind of what custom servers used to be in games, right? So people would have custom servers and kind of have that kind of control over what the game could be. Again, that's something that would be more long term, but we're looking at it both from a perspective of, you know, they help the ecosystem, but also potentially give players more control over how the game plays.
Yeah, if I could jump in to talk about nodes, I think it's really exciting. Of everything in crypto, the decentralized option that nodes presents us is pretty interesting, right? Like, to hosting game servers someday with custom rules and whatnot. Like, I know both Brian and ourselves have long histories of being gamers, playing on mods, even to this day. You know, a lot of our favorite games, it's like the game itself is awesome, but way more awesome when you can get those mutators and custom game rules in place. So yeah, it's one of those where we're starting very slow and sort of like, let's prove out the tech and see how it works really well. And then, you know, I think over the next year, we can look at a roadmap of adding all kinds of fun features, especially based on community feedback of what you guys would like to see with that sort of technology.
And so, and I think the idea of, so like for nodes, they would have token as a reward, and we would look at kind of you know, rewarding that based on kind of the amount of players that would jump into the game, and to kind of give a nice it'd be a nice incentive for the game to grow and for it to be successful. As the game grows, the potential earn would grow, and that would be something we could track to.
Yeah. Right. It might be worth saying too, like our high level approach with this is, you know, we understand that there's the crypto gamer enthusiast who really wants to, you know, stuff like play to earn could be really important to them. And so that's where we're starting with leaderboards and where that can evolve to. But we also want to make sure that Superior continues to be just a fun game for people to jump in and play, you know, alongside those people, even if they haven't even really understood or looked into what crypto is yet. And we think this approach hopefully will help more people like, oh, wow, there's a lot of fun, cool stuff we can do over here. And while also, you know, sort of engaging directly with you guys, especially on the Gala side of things, right?
Yeah, and for the leaderboards, is that so? Are there different leaderboards for co-op and like single player, or what kind of, how does that work?
Yeah, so we're going to start so the very first version of leaderboards is going to be single player, and it's not going to be any kind of like play to earn scheme or anything like that. We want to like get in there early, really start to figure out like how we create a competitive landscape that feels fun. And you know, obviously we don't want players to feel like there's some sort of like pay to win element in a competitive leaderboard. So we're really starting at the very beginning. We're starting with this notion that you have like you can collect keys in the game, and those keys lead to give you access to these leaderboards. And then the leaderboards themselves are sort of special runs. You could think of them as like strikes from Destiny or something like that. They're like special, unique runs that you're trying to get a high score on. And even if you don't get the highest score, which might be very hard in a competitive space, there's going to be sort of better loot tables in these leaderboards. More experience points are going to be on the table for you. So you're going to have a lot of motivation to go and compete in these leaderboards, even if you're not playing at the highest level. The way we're going to start that out is going to be more in a free-to-play approach, where you just have to kind of grind out access to this leaderboard. And that kind of allows us to make it so that you can't just, start a run. If it's not going well, just quit out and start over. Just sort of like icky behavior in a competitive space. We want to create scarcity around how many times you can make an attempt on that board. But like at the same time, we want to kind of create a space where players can compete and win and feel like they can be successful. And even if they don't win, feel like there's like some reason to engage with these boards. So we're trying to get all of that stuff figured out before we switch on any kind of actual earn on these boards, but you'll be seeing the competitive side of it taking shape very, very soon. So you guys can give us a lot of feedback on what you think about the way that we're implementing it. And it's going to start off single player.
Yeah. Well, and especially like it's really tricky to design like the scoring system that is fair, that doesn't have exploits and stuff like that. So we're going to be doing multiple trials and iterations on that. And then I look at even past our initial launch, there's a ton of really great ideas of where we can evolve the leaderboard system. So I'm really excited to see how this feature of the game can grow over the next, few months or so.
Yeah, in our very earliest playtests, the community on Discord instantly started doing like speed runs and competing with each other in that way. Like just gamers just naturally want to compete with each other. We wanted to kind of like harness that interest in even in a PvE cooperative game. Like how can I compete with my community? How can I get bragging rights for being the best? We want to kind of unlock that interest and see if there is sort of legs in that level of engagement. But one of the things that we're doing with our first pass on the leaderboard scoring system is to focus a little less on speed. Speed will still be an element, but we're also going to be rewarding you based on the number of kills you get in a run. And that way, you're not necessarily motivated to just like glitch through a wall and like, run to the end of the map. Instead, you're going to have to be able to play at a really, really high level very quickly. And you're always going to have to be making decisions about, oh, should I like try to take out that group of scraps or should I run past them? Well, like each scrap is worth maybe a little bit more points than the time I'm going to save in this case. So I'm going to go and take them out. And those choices will hopefully add a lot of texture to the competitive landscape of the game.
Yeah, and it's important to remember, we're still very much leaning on the roguelike nature, the RNG, and we've done a lot of work on RNGs and loot drops and how they work, and sort of support builds or open opportunities for those sort of godlike builds to come together. So there's going to be a lot of variation in addition to your own skill that you're bringing to the leaderboard.
Yeah, one of the things that we're doing to address the RNG in a competitive leaderboard is that we have a whole bunch of different elements of a given run that are driven by RNG, and we're sort of in the process of experimenting. Like every leaderboard that we post, we have the ability to sort of switch on and off the RNG for those things. So we could, for instance, decide like, oh yeah, it's all going to be this type of these monsters and this route for everybody, but the superpowers and the loot that drops on the run is all going to be random. Or we can say only this superpower drops, so players are going to have to build their entire build out of fire or whatever. And so like trying to figure out like what is the most interesting ways to kind of push randomness into a competitive space and which parts feel like unfair or frustrating is going to be an interesting balance. It's going to be something that takes time. This is another reason why we want to take it slow on making sure that we're like really doing it right, making this competitive mode feel fun and fair.
That's awesome. So Brian, I think I heard you say something about grinding out like the free-to-play leaderboard. So what does that tell you? You mentioned free. Can players play for free?
Yeah, so like our goal here with Superior in general is to get as many people playing as possible, right? We want as big a community as possible. We want as many people engaging, whether they are interested in crypto or not. We want people coming in and enjoying the game. We really firmly believe that a big, healthy community of people who are enjoying the game is better for everyone, owners and just players and everyone in between. And so, like, yeah, in that goal, like the long-term goal is to offer like free-to-play options in the game and premium options and we want to be expanding and growing all the different ways that players can engage however they want to or however they feel comfortable engaging with the game.
Yeah, speaking of that, somebody was asking about platforms, and yeah, initially we're going to launch on Windows. That's our focus right now on the primary SKU. Over the next year, though, I think it'll be a short step for us to get support for Linux and Mac as well. We'll still have to figure out exactly when that's in scope for dates and whatnot. But the same spirit, right? We just want to make sure, however people want to play the game, they can get their hands on it. Right?
That's great. And is there so what kind of advantages then do NFT holders have over free-to-play players, other than the earn, I guess, if that's.
I think the biggest thing is that the free-to-play players, are not set up necessarily for earn. We're right now looking at like a business model for the free-to-play players where they can engage with the content as a battle pass. That would be very familiar to any gamer who's played any game, where they get a battle pass, they unlock skins, maybe they can buy skins in a marketplace through microtransactions, all the ways that you would kind of like come to expect engaging with the free-to-play game. But you're not necessarily able to go and trade that content that you earn on on the more traditional battle pass on the market or anything. It's locked into your account like any other sort of database item has always been locked. The thing that's cool about owning an NFT is that you could get a really cool skin and you could play with it for a while, and then maybe you're like an early adopter in the game. You've got a year one skin or a season one skin that's like super awesome and rare. Well, like now if it's an NFT, you can actually turn around and sell it later on if you are bored with it, or you just want to kind of see, experiment with what you're going to do with it. And so I think that's like a really, really critical difference. And then of course, like you said, with the Prime NFTs, we're giving you access to things like the competitive leaderboards, which offer a more, like our spin on play to earn, which will, be exclusive to that group.
Okay. And there's still some abilities that are locked or only available to the character NFTs that are focused on better co-op play as well, which are very cool. And then there's some interesting interaction with the Infamy system and character NFTs. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of value that comes from just in how you actually use those characters in game. But we do also want to be very careful of making sure we're not like I said, pay to win or something like that, right? It's still skill is the integral factor that's necessary for having fun in Superior. So
yeah, I guess that's a good point. Like the higher your rarity your character is, the higher your starting skill level cap is. So like an Ancient has a level cap, I think, of 45 versus a Common has a level cap of 30, which is also the same level cap as a free-to-play character. Now, these characters can be improved by using what we're calling Infamy, which is sort of like a prestige system. If you get all the way to your level cap of your character, you can buy an Infamy point for your character. It resets their skills at a slightly higher level than last time and raises your level cap. And those Infamy points are permanently appended to your NFT. So if you gain 5 Infamy points on your character and then you go and sell it later on the open market, there's a possibility that extra Infamy will be perceived as valuable to other players.
Ooh, I like that. That's cool. Well, awesome. And to go to the next topic, I am curious, are you guys working on putting this game on Jiri, the blockchain?
Yeah, we had a conversation with the Jiri team not too long ago, just kind of understanding like what's coming down the pipe and what interesting things we can sort of think about, even beyond the initial integration of cool new features that we can look at. So yeah, I think we're all excited about Jiri and everything that it represents. So we're excited to make use of it.
I think it would be really hard to do some of the things we're talking about doing with the game without having something like Jiri, because otherwise the idea of having free players come in and feel comfortable with NFT transactions and purchases sort of requires some streamlining that the Ethereum network just doesn't give us right now. So we definitely are very much eager to try out Jiri and use that for Superior to kind of facilitate some of that for launch. Yeah, I in terms of Infamy, I know like we both talked about it a little bit, but I know in the past we might not have done a great job of kind of explaining that the idea of infamy is that for your NFTs, that will carry over, right? So that's something that if you ever decide to sell your character to on OpenSea or any sort of other open marketplace, that infamy carries over. So that new player for someone who's kind of looking for potentially avoid some of the grind that is involved in kind of leveling up their character and wants to kind of get into more competitive matches or just want to try out some cool new abilities that the character might already have. That's an avenue where you can use where infamy will carry over and you'll be able to kind of buy something that's already advanced for you.
One of the cool ways in which the infamy system and the competitive system actually interact is that we want to award sort of like more experience and slightly more favorable loot tables inside of the competitive play. And so you'll get players who maybe are focusing more on leveling up their infamy score, who will still kind of have a reason to go in and engage with everybody else on the competitive side, because the sort of intangibles associated with improving your character maybe are enhanced when they're engaging in the competitive space. And they can, certainly for the first generation of these competitive boards that are set up to be free to play, you're going to have to be moving back and forth between the core game where you're jumping between timelines and these weekly challenges that are going to be yielding bigger rewards but higher risk, so that you can, grind out extra challenge keys and then take the keys over and get extra rewards in the challenge runs, and then go back and grind out more challenge keys and so on and so forth. But playing those two modes against each other is going to be one of the better strategies to leveling up your character and shaping it in the way that you're going to be the most excited.
Cool.
Oh, I think you're muted.
I am muted. Thanks. All right. Well, thanks. Yeah, that sounds. I'm really interested to see how that system plans out. I guess I don't think we have any questions we want to go into from YouTube or Discord. I think did see a few.
Yeah, there was the question about. Well, there was a comment about Mario Kart RNG, where it's the rubber band. We are definitely not using the rubber band approach, so there's no notion of like if you're doing really well, you're going to get less drops. It's really just a very complicated system of what you've picked up so far and what you've ignored, and I'll leave it to the internet to figure out what that translates into. I think this is one of those games we're really excited to see the wiki fill out with like all the deciphering of what we've done in the back end, and then we can go change it.
Yeah, there's like, I think that it's just a really interesting thing trying to shape, like we have this whole mantra in terms of our character power growth journey that you're going from gutter to godhood, meaning that at the beginning of a session, you should feel like you're mostly a baseline human who's fighting these superheroes, and by the end you feel like you're almost a godlike being. And the really interesting challenge here is making it so that the gradient that takes you from gutter to godhood is one that is gradual over the entire session. Like a lot of times we get tempted as soon as you start getting a couple superpowers attached to your core verbs like jump and dash, you really start to feel super. And we want to make sure that we dole those things out at a pace and a rate that makes it so that the journey across the entire session, culminates in that experience of feeling like every button I press is triggering some epic type of behavior. And that's why the RNG system ends up being pretty complicated and constantly tuned. We're also, doing a ton of telemetry and collecting data on player behavior and engagement. And we're kind of hoping for, as people engage and they pick powers or pass on powers, we're going to be able to see like, oh, interesting. People never, take this power that makes, burning do more damage over time or something like that. Like, let's either redesign that or pull it out or make it better and then see if people are going to engage with it more.
Right. Well, and classic with this genre, right? You want to avoid skills that fall into the auto pick, right? We want to make sure every time you're presented with a choice, it's a meaningful, like, both are good, but which way do I want to go this run? And that should be a moment for thought. So yeah, we're constantly tons of telemetry, power player progress report or something like that. We're constantly digging into that, even with our own internal data. I think the other part that's really important, that is something we continue to iterate on, is getting the right jumps in difficulty as you're going through that journey as well. So that if you've made poor choices, you may be able to clear that one boss, but as soon as you get to the next area, you're going to get smacked in the face because you did pick up a new weapon for that, or whatever the case may be for your build. Because that making sure the game is challenging is part of the core of the fun of the game too, right? And being able to overcome that challenge.
Yeah, we very intentionally made a big step up in difficulty every time you beat like sort of a mini boss on the journey to the end, and it creates a really interesting dynamic where just as you kind of get a handle on the enemies in the environment that you're in right now, once you beat that boss, if you haven't been making good choices in terms of what powers and the build that you're building, that after you beat that boss and you go to a new environment and you're encountering a new class of enemies, you can be in for a rude awakening, and it makes repeat runs really, really interesting because you can feel like you're kind of really get a handle on one of the tiers of difficulty, but then the next tier of difficulty is going to demand a whole new level of skill, a whole new level of understanding of the RNG systems and the power build opportunities. And we're always trying to find ways to add depth to how the powers sort of talk to each other inside of a power system and a cross power. So like, we want a power in the fire system to talk to all the other fire powers in an interesting way so that you can kind of be like, oh, interesting, I want my fire to burn longer or burn hotter or whatever. But then we also want to do stuff where we sort of say, oh, ice and fire, when they're combined, that interaction also is an interesting one. Oh, I'm locking people down with ice and then I'm doing damage over time with fire, or every time I get a headshot, I'm applying both ice and fire. These things where there's like kind of keyword crossovers are going to be, part of the scavenger hunt of mastering a good roguelike. You're muted again.
Sorry. So, but going back to the characters and the skill trees, do you know when we're going to be able to see the skill trees and what those look like for the certain characters that we have?
I believe there was a mock-up for Murmur that was circulating around, and then obviously when we do the next playtest, you'll be able to see them all.
Yeah, the blog post.
I know they're work in progress, right? So I just want to make sure like, give folks a sense of like when they can look at them and sort of like, because I know we're gonna have a playtest alpha soon, and things are gonna be TBD still, right? And I want to sort of get a sense of when do you think we're going to start seeing kind of the final skill trees start shaping up to shape?
Well, everything will be final the day we ship. And then we still reserve the right to change it because, we're, like I said, we're not just shipping and walking away. This is a live game. We've got already like a interesting roadmap into 2023 and beyond. And part of that is going back to Brian's comments about the telemetry. Looking at what people are using is one thing more overpowered. Are people only taking one branch in a skill tree for this character? Okay, what do we need to go change there? And then I think somebody did ask a question if you're able to reset your upgrades, and that ties into the infamy system that Brian was talking about earlier. So when you infamy your character, we need a better verb for that. Everything resets, but then you start a little bit further and can go a little bit further in the tree and basically work up to that max level where you can get the maximum number of skills for that character.
Yeah, ultimately, like everybody ends up at the same level cap. It's just that the journey is much longer for the lower rarity characters. So theoretically, a rare and a common could have the same number of skills, but the rare gets a head start on that, and doesn't have to do any infamy in order to kind of get that number of skills. And then also, I guess it's worth noting that the rare will have skills on the skill tree that are exclusive to that character or that level of rarity, that synergize with different builds, kind of open up new opportunities for them to spend their skill points on, which is kind of cool.
I was looking at more questions here on Discord. Sorry, I'm trying to read. There's a few coming in here. I think the question was about lending and how that will work with monetization when that's released, is what Rocket Unit says.
So, like, if you lose on a leaderboard, you're saying?
I think so.
So in order to make a zero-sum system, there do have to be winners and losers. Otherwise, the system becomes inflationary. So that being said, the way I'm kind of viewing this is that like if you are playing competitively and you're going for, you know, once we ultimately get to that point where we're offering earn for victory, that, you know, the earn will of course naturally only be awarded to the winners, but there are all sorts of other benefits to playing in the leaderboards that are kind of above and beyond simply whether or not you win or lose. So like I said before, if you just for participating, you are accessing like better loot tables and accelerating your experience curve by participating in the leaderboards. And so in that way, you're kind of given access to you know, like basically different advantages and different content that you wouldn't be able to access otherwise. And the being a winner is sort of an extra goodness that you get on top of it all.
Sure. And I think to the point of leasing, my understanding is this will be part of the feature set of the new Geary chain at some point. I think from a gameplay perspective, you know, Superior is just, are you playing with this character or not? And then when we resolve the leaderboard, then we can do the whatever profit sharing or whatever we decide to set up for that. But I think that's still something we're looking at post.
That's like a long future. Yeah. Right now, no concrete plans around that at all.
Yes. Okay. Looks like that's also one question. Are there going to be any other NFTs other than characters?
Yeah, we've already released some skins. I think there's, you look at the different types of content in the game, you know, there's lots of different potential. But I think right now we're just focusing on, let's make sure the characters are working really solid and that they have meaningful value in the sake of the game and all that. And then from there we can sort of expand future what might be interesting. Right?
Yeah, we're definitely we're also kind of introducing new categories of like cosmetics and stuff that will all ultimately be able to be set up as NFTs. Like right now we have skins and we have for both like weapons and characters, but you know, we're looking at adding things like accessories, backpacks, you know, emblems, stuff like that, and all of that stuff can be awarded as an NFT for playing the game or participating in some version of the battle pass.
And is there any are you able to see any of that in the playtest that's being planned, or
you'll be able to see hints of things in the playtest?
Okay, gotcha.
So some of the customization, some of those aspects are in the game, but I think and correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, right? The battle pass is still something that's not, you won't see specifically how that works or that unlocks or any of that. But I think there's some customizations that we'll probably have in the next playtest, next alpha, probably.
Yeah, we're going to be rolling out some basic customization just to kind of start to stress test the system and roll that out. And yeah, the next alpha will have a bunch of those customization handles switched on.
We'll have some of them, yes.
Yeah, and I think it would be interesting to hear from kind of the Gala community after they play is like what is interesting for them as an NFT, right? Because a lot of things could be made into an NFT, but some things will make more sense than others. And obviously, there's kind of the element to consider is like just because we can make something into an NFT doesn't mean we should. So it'd be definitely great to hear feedback on that after the playtest.
Oh, yeah. I know. We got to support someday being able to take my Snoop NFT for one of his new tracks and use that as my Overdrive soundtrack.
Are you signing up for that? Because I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah, everything said in an AMA is written in blood, right? So we'll see. It seems like a fun idea. I think it goes back to more the high level without committing to anything specifically. Is like NFTs are these cool things that we haven't really figured out all the interesting things we can do with them yet. So that's one thing I'm personally excited to see us do. You know, getting past this initial launch, starting to experiment more and more of like, yeah, based on community feedback, what's cool, what do you guys want to see? Let's just try some crazy stuff and see what we can figure out that is actually fun here.
Yeah, one of the things I'm personally kind of excited about with moving over to the Gala blockchain is I think it's going to be easier for us to issue more NFTs in general, like as part of things like the Battle Pass and stuff. And I think that gets really interesting. Like if a lot of the NFTs that we issue are more focused on, it's more like play to own than it is sort of like, you know, there's no like necessarily earn associated with it, but by participating at a specific moment in time, by participating in the season 1 battle pass, you have an opportunity to get a bunch of digital assets that belong to you, and like those things will never be distributed again. And in the future, if the game is successful, those things will become like very cool. People will be like, oh, cool. Like, where'd you get that cool skin for Murmur? Like, I've never seen that before. It's like, oh, you had to join at the very beginning. I think that sort of thing is really fun and interesting.
I'm a big sucker for that kind of stuff. I have all my like emblems from Destiny, from like the certain events, all the holiday events, RuneScape stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Very cool. Very cool.
And right now, a lot of gaming communities, people kind of bend over backwards to figure out some way to transfer those rare skins to each other. Like people will like sell their Riot accounts to other people so that they can get a handle on some rare skin from some character or whatever. And it's just like, it kind of, I think, shows that there's a lot of desire for people to be able to do that, just to go to the comic book convention and trade comic books. And that element of things, I think, is really fun and interesting. And it really puts in the hands of the community the value of these things, right? Like, we can issue these things, we can create epic challenges for players to have to overcome, and award them with these unique awards, and then the community actually gets to decide what it's worth. In a weird way, I'm not necessarily, we as the game designers are not necessarily part of the equation on what that value proposition is. It's up to the community, but I'm super excited to see what people say these things are worth.
Right, and I like the fact that it is on the blockchain, so it's going to be like, you can't like, I think some game companies will do those like exclusive items, and then later on they might sell it for like their in-game currency, and then you kind of like take away that specialness of what that item was. I think on blockchain and doing it this way, there's way less of a scenario that might happen, because you can't really make them minting old NFTs at that point. So
yeah. You talked about crazy ideas in the future of like being able to like destroy NFTs that you've collected and turn them into other things and stuff like that. So, I mean,
I was totally going to mention the Heraldry Cube, and I was like, I probably shouldn't. They'll get mad at me for promising things.
That's definitely not a promise that would happen, but like, I do think it's interesting to like, there's something crazy about the idea of we issue 1,000 lime skins for Murmur, but then 800 people decide to throw those skins in the recycling bin, and suddenly there's only 200 in circulation, because everybody else is sort of cashing them out and getting some sort of other, consumable inside the game or whatever. It could be like really, really weird effects on the scarcity and value of these things, even based on like that we as the developers can't anticipate, which is super fascinating.
Yeah, it's funny how sometimes there's like a random item that you don't expect to be the thing everyone was crazy for, and then you're like, "Whoa, that's a surprise."
I'm just amazed because I think Brian just signed Ray up for some work there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just at the Emerald City Comic Con last weekend, and I was walking around in the vendor area, and I went up to this like kiosk, and it was like all the high value comics. And I was just like kind of blown away by like how many of the comics that I had in the 70s and from the 70s and 80s that are now worth like a crap load. And I'm like, I had all of these. Like, I recognize these covers. They were like in a box underneath my bed, and now they're worth like tons of money. It's like so weird, but it's cool.
I guess I'm on the opposite spectrum. It's like I don't really care too much about skins when I get them in games and whatnot. But if I can burn those to get me some cool unique thing, especially if that can like lead to actually like new types of powers or stuff like that, that's a direction I'd love to explore as well. But
maybe that's what it is, right? Like it's like for the person who wants the cool cosmetic and they want to own it, they can just have it. But then that's the recycling bin route. Is like, I don't want this freaking skin. I'm going to destroy it forever so I can get a little advantage in my next round. So
that's like, sometime late next year we introduce the recycler robot as our new character.
Yeah,
you can just feed it NFTs to unlock new abilities.
Oh crap! This AMA has turned into a brainstorm session.
Okay, yeah.
I'm loving it. There's just more features going in. That's great.
Oh,
Ray's gonna hurt. Sorry.
Yeah, I'll totally get on that, but I'm on vacation for 2023, so good luck, Brian.
There's a few questions in the Discord. I don't know if you've seen some of these There's I think Sinister Grin is asking, there are other skills that aren't still being fleshed out, that aren't credit related, but how do you divide up the skill point matters? Because a free-to-play account, for example, wouldn't even have access to it and would place that skill point into something more standard instead.
Yeah, I think a lot of the NFT specific skills are focused on not only does it boost you, but it boosts your team. So it just really doubles down on like good co-op play. And people, we almost like as a design goal want to like, if somebody shows up with a character NFT, especially an ancient or a legendary, it's like other players are going to be excited, right? Like, oh heck yeah, this person is going to totally give us a boost for this match.
Yeah,
because we want to make it always a positive experience for folks in that.
Yeah, at the heart, even though we talk about the competitive side today, at the heart of the game is a cooperative game, and we want it to feel like kind of an exciting, fun moment to join a match and get teamed up with somebody who has maybe some sort of rare epic NFT, because you're like, oh cool, like we're going to be able to go and do something that I don't usually get to do, you know, like it should be a fun experience to pair up with people who have different stuff than you.
I think there's a few more questions coming in here. Rocket Unit is asking about cheers. I think there's some mention of that in terms of leaderboards, but what about cheers with monetization? How's that being handled?
Yeah, I think fortunately we're hosting game servers, so there's a certain level of just security that we can enforce with that. And then on top of that, with all our telemetry and whatnot, we can look for aberrations. If somebody posts a score that's orders of magnitude above everybody else in the leaderboard, okay, we have the tools to go back and figure out, is that a valid session or whatnot. That being said, we know like in every game, chasing cheaters is an ongoing thing, but we're putting the tools in place to make sure we can deal with that. And I think including one of the things we should probably discuss a little bit more is like community reporting tools and stuff like that. When you do see people wall hacking or whatever fun ways they try to exploit the game.
Yeah, it's definitely part of the planning process for this, right? We definitely don't want cheaters hacking for Earn. That definitely will cause other problems for us, just for the enjoyment of the game.
Trying to see if there's anything else on Discord. I think that was the last question. Everyone seems to be excited about the NFT recycle bot.
There's a question around where we'll start jury integration. I think they meant Rocket Unit. When will jury integration start? Well, we started having conversations internally with the Drifter team. I think some planning and kind of estimation needs to happen on both sides to figure out the specific time frame for jury. But obviously, before we do any sort of like earn mechanics or turn on any of those, or have anything around trying to reward NFTs to new free players, those are things that we need to kind of have jury for. So it'll definitely be by the time we launch season 1 for sure, and we're looking to figure out specifically when that time frame is.
Great. All right. Anything else you guys want to talk about? I'm trying to think. Is any more questions? I think there was one from the Google form.
Daily and weekly dungeons. I think that's what our leaderboards are, sort of the vehicle for that. The leaderboards will be changing often, and we have a whole system for mutators and rules modifiers. So even if you're playing through the same mission, like, hey, go take out brute force, this particular leaderboard may have a lot of like, I don't want to give too much away, but little tricks to throw a loop into your strategy.
Gotcha. And do you guys have any plans or any ideas for like kind of more event-focused dungeons? Some kind of special kind of, I don't know, but some games do seasonal things or holidays, but do you have any plans like that or anything in mind?
Yeah, absolutely. Once we get past the preseason, there's a lot of fun things for planning ahead. And I think as gamers, we're always fan of like, oh, it's Halloween. Of course, we got to do, jack-o'-lanterns and stuff or whatever.
There's so much stuff to do in the superhero genre too. Like, superheroes have a long, storied, history in the comic books anyway of doing like the Christmas special and stuff like that. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity to have fun with seasonal content, and embrace some of those tropes and give our own dark, mutated spin on it, which I think will be pretty fun.
So Backbone wearing a Santa hat, maybe.
Yeah.
No, we have Ray here in a good mood, and I keep seeing the same question come up, so I'm going to ask it again. Sounds like folks keep asking about team versus team deathmatch modes.
I would love to. I'd love to carve out development time to go revisit PvP. As I think we mentioned before, past AMAs, we actually started development of Superior in competitive long before we had co-op really working, and it was super fun, even in its like crazy unbalanced state. So, absolutely, let's just get our co-op feet under us and make sure everything's working as we intended, and then we can talk about new game modes.
Also saw that Sinister Grain is asking if there's any other fun superpowers that we're cooking.
Oh yeah,
yes,
we've got.
But, which ones are we giving them access to that they haven't
Yeah, we've
seen
got
before?
so there's a whole new superpower that's going to be coming out in the next playtest, which we're really excited about. It's called Xeno, and it's kind of like a mixture of Mr. Fantastic and Venom. It's you basically are pairing with a shape-shifting alien who can like wrap itself around you and turn you into a motorcycle or a spiked bouncy ball, or you can like summon gigantic slappy hands and just like turn everybody into blood and guts. And the other cool thing about that power set is that it also has this sort of autonomous element. So as you build up your Xeno powers, you start attracting these little Xeno buddies, we call them, or Xenos. And they're like these little spheres that will shoot where you shoot, or they'll heal you, or they'll heal your friends. And you can basically teach your Xenos all sorts of little tricks by buying new skills. And then those tricks will kind of sort of happen ambiently, or sort of take a cue from what you're doing and follow your actions and try to match what you're doing. And so you have a little swarm of Xenos flying around your head. And then I think, I can't remember if the last time we had Force Field, but Force Field's still there. That is a power set where you defeat brute force and you get Force Field powers.
And force blades, and even like fire and ice have gotten a lot of the core powers you've played with before have gotten a ton of makeovers, new custom animations, effects. Like, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
The force blades is one of my favorite things. We've got like the way that the blood like slices off and like gets caked on the force field blade. Basically, the premise is that like most force field powers, you can shape barriers and like platforms to stand on stuff. But we were like, well, in Superior, you can also shape your force field into like a spinning saw blade that is like 4 meters wide, and then just like direct it around the battlefield and chop people up and spray blood all over the walls, and it's glorious.
I played a bit of that in one of the it was really fun.
I
don't control it though. It just went everywhere.
Are you okay with talking about the backstory of Xena?
The backstory of who?
Xeno, the Xeno powers. Where does that come from?
Oh, well, that's a big mystery, and that's something that we're actually going to be unfolding over the long run. So I don't know if I want to put any spoilers out there. I think let's start with just like the name and the behavior, and there's definitely hints that are dropped in the background of the world and the dialogue of the characters. But I kind of want to see, whether or not the community can figure out what that backstory is as it unfolds over future seasons.
I like that. That's cool.
Non-answer. I like it. Very good. Mystery.
One of the weird hints is that it is first unlocked when you defeat a certain enemy, and like maybe that has something to do with the origin of it or something. But who knows?
Gotta play to find out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. I think that's about it for the questions. Anything else you guys want to cover before? I think we're getting close here to the end.
No, I just kind of wanted to give a update on what's coming up for Superior. So we're sort of getting into the busiest time. We have a lot of stuff happening for Superior. We'll probably be coming back for a lot of AMAs in the next few weeks. So we have a alpha coming up pretty soon. We'll announce dates soon. We're actually going to be a few of us going to be at PAX So we'll release more information about packs pretty soon. But we're gonna have a little event to show off the game, give some people some previews for the game itself during PAX. So we're pretty excited about that. We also obviously are planning our node approach and our node sale. That'll be coming up in the next few weeks. But we also are planning to have before the end of the year holiday, a preseason release, right? So that's what we're going to call our first season preseason, as we tweak and tune our the game and getting ready for our season 1 launch after that. So lots of stuff coming up. One thing that is a surprise that I can't really talk about right now, I don't want to spoil it yet, but there's something that will surprise folks that we're going to be talking about in the next few weeks. That is the only thing I can say. It's kind of coming from the inspiration, one of the inspirations for Superior and the world that the team has built. It'll be very related to that and inspired by that. So I think it's a really cool surprise. I think people are going to be they're not going to see it coming. So I'm really excited about that.
Well, we're all looking forward to it, sure. All right. Well, thanks so much, guys. Thanks, Ray, Brian, and Sal for joining us here. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in and asking all those questions. Really appreciate it. We're excited to show what's to come next. And yeah, Sal, the sale starts at 3, right?
The sale starts in 4 minutes.
4 minutes.
All right, good luck.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yep. See you in Discord. Bye.